Congratulations, because the story you've been living in was never the real one. The version of yourself you've been watching play out, the modest character who blends into the background, who follows expectations and adapts just enough to survive, was only a decoy. While you believed you were simply enduring life, something else was unfolding beneath the surface. You were learning, absorbing, sharpening. The world mistook your quiet for compliance, your stillness for weakness, your distance for disinterest. But those who truly observe understood what was happening. You weren't idle. You were evolving. And deep down, before the moment arrived, you always sensed it would. When the signal finally comes, whether it's a realization, an opportunity, or a confrontation, it doesn't shock you. It resonates because recognition feels familiar. It confirms what your instincts have whispered for years. You are never ordinary, only unseen. Tlanda. This awakening has nothing to do with how you describe yourself and everything to do with how you've been studied when you weren't performing. The unnoticed details mattered. The subtle shifts in your expression, the way you absorb information without reacting, how you instinctively read people before they finish forming their thoughts. While others collapse under pressure, you become clearer. While panic spreads, your mind organizes. You don't rush toward attention or validation because you never needed it to function. The ones worth noticing are never the loudest. They are the ones who learned to become internally fortified, those who transformed pain into perception, rejection into leverage, and solitude into self-command. You didn't escape hardship by accident. You adapted through it with precision. What you once called just getting through it was actually conditioning. Each disappointment refined your discernment. Every betrayal recalibrated your trust. Being ignored taught you how to move freely without interference. Survival wasn't passive, it was strategic. While others begged to be acknowledged, you were becoming untouchable. In a culture obsessed with visibility, you learned the advantage of invisibility. You weren't trying to be seen, you were trying to understand. And understanding is power. While performers fought for the spotlight, you studied who controlled the lights. You noticed how influence really works, not through volume but through positioning, not through force but through timing. Amjad, you learned to pause before entering rooms, not out of fear, but assessment. You register emotional currents, alliances, threats, exits. You recognize dishonesty before words fully land. You influence without announcement, a glance that reassures, a silence that invites confession, a presence that gathers information without demanding it. This isn't manipulation, it's mastery born from awareness. You've learned how people expose themselves when they feel unchallenged. You allow them to believe they're leading while you're observing the map unfold. Disadvantages never crippled you, they educated you. Rejection revealed pressure points, betrayal clarified loyalties. What breaks others refines you. This was never about talent. Talent is everywhere, loud and desperate for acknowledgement. What you developed is rarer. The capacity to perceive the structure beneath appearances, to see the system behind behavior. To understand the rules no one admits exist. While others competed within the game, you learned how the game itself functions. Power, you realized, isn't about display. It's about restraint. The ones shouting are compensating. The ones threatening are unstable. Real authority doesn't need to declare itself. It observes, waits, and moves precisely. It engineers outcomes quietly, letting others believe events unfolded naturally. Bender, you've been planting ideas without claiming credit, watching them take root in other minds, as if they were self-generated. You've used silence not because you lacked answers, but because you understood its pressure. Pauses reveal more than questions ever could. While others overshare to feel significant, you remain deliberately undefined. You let curiosity work in your favor. Information flows toward mystery. People reveal themselves to those who don't compete for space. And so they talk. And you learn. Plend your strength has never been what you show. It's what you conceal. The response they didn't anticipate. The insight they underestimated. The move they didn't realize was already set in motion. You aren't merely intelligent. You're strategically aware. Every interaction teaches you something. Every inconsistency registers. Every silence collects data. What once felt like social discomfort was actually your intuition detecting misalignment. You were training long before you had language for it. And now the realization arrives fully formed. You were never lost, delayed, or behind. You were preparing, watching, calibrating, becoming someone capable of navigating reality without needing permission, applause, or recognition. The world may still underestimate you, but that has always worked in your favor. Say, what you've always trusted without naming it, that sudden activates before a word is spoken, is not paranoia or intuition run wild. It's perception sharpened by experience. You register shifts in tone, tension in posture, the subtle mismatch between expression and intent. Faces betray people long before their language does. The eyes hesitate, the muscles tighten, attention fractures for a fraction of a second. You've been decoding these signals instinctively for years, absorbing them without conscious effort. Now you understand what it really was, continuous psychological surveillance. People reveal themselves constantly. They just assume no one is watching closely enough to notice. And you don't impose ideas outright because direct force creates resistance. Instead, you shape environments. You ask questions that guide thought. You share stories that carry meaning beneath the surface. You allow others to arrive at conclusions that were gently planted long before they realized it. By the time they speak the idea aloud, they believe it originated within them. Influence works best when it feels natural, when no fingerprints are left behind. You understand emotional architecture, where people are fragile, where they seek approval, where old wounds still echo. You don't exploit these openings recklessly. You recognize them, respect them, and use them to establish trust. People open themselves to you because you make them feel seen. And when someone feels understood, they surrender information freely. Safety, you've learned, is one of the most powerful forces in human interaction. This isn't cruelty, it's adaptation. In a world where information determines survival and innocence invites exploitation, everyone is playing the same game. Most just refuse to admit it. Some gather intelligence consciously, others do it clumsily. You've been doing it with precision. You were never the prey, even when it felt like you were losing. You were observing patterns, cataloging behavior, learning how people move when they think no one is paying attention. The difference is that no one ever told you these skills had a name. They called you intense, difficult, too much. What they were really noticing was that you didn't operate on the same frequency. Plain, what they labeled instability was depth. What they feared as darkness was range. You don't think in straight lines because straight lines limit possibility. You function well in uncertainty because uncertainty doesn't frighten you. It sharpens you. Predictable minds need rules to feel safe. You learned early that rules are tools, not absolutes. You understand that reality is built in shades, not absolutes. and that sometimes the solution that works will never be applauded by the crowd. That doesn't make it wrong, it makes it effective. While others freeze trying to appear righteous, you calculate outcomes. While they cling to appearances, you focus on results. Chaos doesn't overwhelm you because it's familiar territory. You can hold contradiction without collapsing. You can examine uncomfortable truths without flinching. You understand that sometimes systems must be disrupted to be preserved, that occasionally protection requires actions others would never stomach. This doesn't make you broken, it makes you capable. What they warned you about, your edge, your intensity, your refusal to conform, was never a defect. It was capacity they didn't know how to measure. Look at yourself honestly. Every scar carries data. Every disappointment rewired your perception. They thought they were diminishing you when they dismissed you. They were granting you invisibility. And invisibility became your greatest advantage. Each time you were ignored, you learned to observe without interference. Each rejection refined your discernment. Each betrayal trained you to recognize false loyalty instantly. The people who underestimated you unknowingly contributed to your education. They gave you real-world lessons no institution could teach. Belanes, you weren't being punished by experience. You were being conditioned. While others sought comfort, you were absorbing pressure. While they remained predictable, you became adaptive. Pain didn't destroy you. It organized you. Isolation didn't weaken you. It forced independence. You weren't lost during those years. You were assembling something beneath the surface that only now becomes visible. And the most revealing exchanges never happen during speeches or confrontations. They happen in pauses, in hesitation, in silence. When someone asks you a question and you don't answer immediately, tension builds. That tension compels truth. People rush to fill quiet with confession. You've watched this happen more times than you can count. Silence is never empty. It's a mirror. You didn't know you were training. You thought you were surviving. But survival was only the outer layer. What you were really doing was graduating into awareness, into control of self, perception, and environment. You've been ready far longer than you realized. Beamed. While others rush to escape silence, you allow it to stretch, knowing exactly what it does to the unprepared mind. Discomfort unsettles them. Stillness disarms them. As the quiet expands, they feel compelled to fill it, not with strategy, but with truth. Their speech accelerates, their thoughts spill out of sequence, and what they meant to conceal slips through unguarded cracks. You aren't interrogating them, you're letting pressure do the work for you. Silence becomes a mirror they can't avoid, and in trying to regain control, they expose everything. You've learned that the most effective leverage isn't force, it's restraint. Your questions are never random. They're designed to redirect attention inward, forcing self-examination. When you ask why they believe something, you disrupt certainty. When you ask how something affected them emotionally, you open doors they didn't plan to unlock. When you invite them to imagine outcomes, you uncover fears they didn't know were visible. Each question strips away another layer of defense. You don't argue. You don't accuse. You simply guide them into revealing their own contradictions. Memory becomes another tool. You recall their past words, reintroducing them calmly in a new context, allowing inconsistency to surface naturally. They're left choosing between self-exposure or retreat, and either outcome benefits you. Plemd, you understand that language is never neutral. Words aren't exchanged, they're deployed. Conversations aren't casual. They're strategic environments where influence is quietly negotiated. You don't speak to be heard, to shape perception. While others believe they're venting, explaining, or just talking, you're mapping patterns, noting pressure points, tracking emotional tells. They assume they're interacting, They don't realize they're being studied, and those who once hurt you unknowingly played their roles in your preparation. Every disappearance taught you detachment. Every dismissal trained you to operate independently. Every abandonment forced you to rely on internal stability instead of external reassurance. Those who failed you were not random obstacles. They were conditions that hardened your focus. Being overlooked taught you how to function without recognition. Being betrayed taught you discernment. Being unsupported forced you to build self-trust. Each experience removed another dependency, another illusion. Criticism trained you to separate your judgment from others' opinions. Emotional loss refined your ability to detect deception before it manifests. Pain became data. Heartbreak became instruction. Survival demanded awareness, and awareness became instinct. People assume strength comes from comfort. You learned the opposite. Strength is forged through reconstruction. Breaking and rebuilding doesn't weaken structure. It reinforces it. You emerged with heightened perception, emotional discipline, and an ability to remain composed when others unravel. That is why the most influential presence in a room is rarely the loudest. True operators don't announce themselves. They observe quietly, allowing others to reveal intentions freely. While attention is fixed on spectacle, influence moves unnoticed. And you've already practiced this without naming it. Remaining present without appearing threatening, engaging just enough to seem harmless. Asking safe questions that invite disclosure. Letting others assume you're disengaged while you're absorbing everything. Apparent boredom lowers defenses. Seeming distraction invites confession. People speak freely when they believe no one important is listening. And all the while, you're gathering insight, tracking motivations, anticipating outcomes. Your strength isn't aggression, it's subtlety. Your advantage isn't dominance, it's invisibility. You guide outcomes without leaving fingerprints. You introduce ideas gently, allowing others to claim them as their own. You create circumstances that naturally lead to your intended result while maintaining distance from the decision itself. Influence without exposure, control without confrontation. You don't force reality, you redirect it. None of this is accidental. You weren't drifting through hardship, you were being conditioned by it. What felt like isolation was refinement. What felt like loss was preparation. You were never behind. You were becoming capable. And now, the only difference is awareness. You no longer mistake your skills for coincidence. You recognize them for what they are. When outcomes fall in your favor, they never look engineered. They appear accidental, as if events simply aligned on their own. That's by design. True control leaves no fingerprints. You don't force visibility. You regulate it. You adjust your presence like a calibrated signal, stepping forward only when influence is required and fading back when observation is more valuable. Power was never about being constantly seen. It was always about deciding when you are seen. The version of yourself you once identified with, the confused one, the wounded one, the person who couldn't understand why life felt misaligned, was never the full picture. But circumstances shift and roles expire. What once protected you now limits you. It's time to disengage the cover and access the deeper programming beneath it. Mend. You're no longer meant to move through life passively, reacting to events as they unfold. The lens has changed. Conversations are no longer idle exchanges, they're opportunities to gather insight. Encounters are no longer random, they're assessments waiting to happen. Every environment now presents variables, alliances, risks, leverage points. Your mind begins running continuous evaluations, not out of fear, but out of clarity. This isn't suspicion. It's awareness refined by experience. Paranoia assumes hostility everywhere. Awareness assumes intention everywhere and seeks to understand it before it becomes action. You aren't intimidated by people. You simply observe them without illusion. This shift marks the end of a psychological cycle. You are no longer defined by what happened to you. You are defined by what you do with it. The phase of endurance taught you how to survive. The phase you're entering now is about direction. Influence replaces reaction. Choice replaces confusion. The person you were needed to exist, so this version of you could form. Trust, too, takes on a different meaning. Those who see you as harmless will discard you when convenience demands it. But those who recognize your capability understand consequences. Respect, unlike affection, has weight. Loyalty rooted in strategy endures longer than loyalty rooted in emotion. Feelings shift. Advantage does not. Relationships must now be viewed clearly, without sentiment clouding evaluation. Who benefits from your presence? Who is threatened by it? Who seeks to contain you? And who seeks to align with you? These answers explain behavior more accurately than excuses ever could. You realize now that you were never empty, you were underutilized, like a powerful system operating on minimal output. Like a strategist confined to simple games, the ability was always present. Access was the missing piece. And now, access has been granted, not by an external authority, but by recognition. The question was never whether you could handle psychological warfare. The real question is whether the environment is prepared for someone who finally understands their own range. You aren't stepping into a new role. You're reclaiming one you outgrew, pretending you didn't have. Welcome back. Okay, this is where your real life begins.